Welcome to Make It Yourself Living, and here we're going to be looking at some beer flavored potato bread. So, before I even begin with the recipe, I did get this off of, I believe it's called Little Hill House Homestead. I'll put a link within the description. If you don't see it immediately, I'm still composing it and it should be up shortly. I want to give credit where credit's due. The original recipe is her sandwich bread recipe, but in here I'm adding potatoes. Now you could nuke a potato, mash it up, and come up with a cup of potatoes if you want. Here I have 2/3 of a cup of potato flakes. That's because I have a box of mashed potatoes up on my pantry shelf that I want to use up. In the future, I probably would just nuke a potato. I think it's better for the whole recipe. Although if you want it to be like a bread in a jar, you would have to use the potato flakes because that would be more shelf stable, is what I'm trying to say. Next, you're going to see me put in flour. Now, the original recipe is 3 1/3 cup of flour, but I'm putting in potato flakes. I'm substituting some of my flour with the potato flakes. So instead of 3 1/3 cup, it winds up being 2 2/3 cup because 2/3 cup is coming out from the potato flakes. I like using bread flour. If you don't make bread very often, just use all-purpose flour. Don't get fancy for this. If you like what this comes out to be, I would recommend getting bread flour if you're going to do it more than once a week. Definitely, it will give you better results. I use King Arthur. It is a little more expensive than other flours, but I always get good responses from it or results from it. So that was 2 2/3 cup of flour. Next, you're going to see me bump in a couple of tablespoons of sugar. That's from the original recipe, 2 tablespoons. Now, it didn't get fancy, it's just sugar. In future loaves, though, I'm thinking about getting myself some granulated honey and be able to put that on as a shelf-stable kind of bread mix. But, two tablespoons of sugar happens here. There it goes. And it'll take it a moment. There we go. So, like I was mentioning, in the future, I'm going to try some granulated honey and see how that interacts with the whole bread loaf and see how yummy it is. After the sugar, now her original recipe calls for 1 tablespoon of powdered milk. I wanted a little more, so I put 2 tablespoons in. I don't want it to get too nuts, so you'll see that shortly. I'm thinking about in the future possibly trying some buttermilk powder instead of just regular milk powder and see how that may alter the actual recipe. But here you're just going to see me bump in some milk powder, 2 tablespoons worth. Now, could you put this all in 1 quart jar and put it up on your shelf? I'm afraid it's going to be a little more than a quart is exactly to fill it up. But you could use a half-gallon jar if you want, or you could possibly use some bags. But remember, bags are not oxygen. Oxygen will get through bags. So you're going to have to make sure you use it relatively soon. You just don't want it sitting up there for a year or two in a bag. Okay? And there goes the milk powder I was talking about. Okay, here you just saw me throw in some salt. Now, I do recommend putting some salt in this. Bread does need a little salt for flavor, but if you have a restrictive diet and you can't use salt, try salt substitute. I'm honestly not sure how that'll make the bread go, but do what you have to do in order to stay healthy. But here it's about a teaspoon of salt. Now you're seeing me throw in yeast. Now, I didn't put on the recipe that it has to be active dry or instant. It just has to be good yeast. If your yeast has been up in a cupboard for a while, the very easiest way to find out is to put some lukewarm water in a glass. Go ahead and put in maybe a teaspoon of sugar and maybe a teaspoon of yeast. Mix it all together. Let it sit aside for 5-10 minutes. If it looks like it's sludging up, and it's going to look kind of gross, your yeast is good. If it doesn't look like anything has changed, your yeast is dead. So you'll want to get some more yeast. Here it's 2¼ teaspoons of yeast, or 1 package of yeast. Your best bet is to get either a jar or a larger package. It's a shame to use those little pre-done deals, but that's what's here. 2¼ teaspoons of yeast. And the last thing you see me putting in here, well, of course, before the liquid, is butter powder. This is a 1/2 cup of butter powder. It's 1-for-1 equivalent to taking a 1/2 cup of butter. I believe Allie on Little Hill Homestead uses just butter, doesn't put it in her little mix when she has it up on the shelf. So she'll throw in the butter as she's mixing it. Here I just put it all together. It's going to take me a moment, but you'll see me bring out the beer and start to mix all this together very quickly. Now, why am I doing this by hand? Because I know some of you aren't going to have a stand mixer. Would I use a stand mixer? Oh, in a heartbeat. I don't like making bread by hand. I find it so much easier in a stand mixer. But of course, there are purists out there who have to feel the bread in order to know that it's good. Me, I'm okay with the stand mixer. So as I pour in a beer, what you're going to notice, I do it in sections. You don't want to pour everything in at once. You want to pour in a little bit, mix it up, pour in a little bit more, mix it up. You want to develop the dough ball, but you need the dough ball to be a little tacky. You don't want it to be just a dry dough ball because it's going to be dry bread. You give it a little tacky feeling, so after you mix everything, kind of feel it. Does it feel tacky? Maybe a little dough comes off on your finger? Then you've got it. Stop right there. You'll see me do it. I'll start by mixing everything within the bowl, and then of course everything will get flopped down on the counter. I would like to explain something to you, and hopefully I don't confuse. I'm not going to tell you you got to put in 1.25 cups because it's going to depend on where you live. If you're in a dry climate like I am, I'm in Arizona, I normally wind up putting in a little bit more because it's drier down here. But if I were like in the southeast, when humidity is going up, the flour itself could have a lot of moisture in it and not need a lot of additional liquid. So it depends on where you're living. Your best bet is to weigh out your flour. I believe a cup is supposed to be 5 ounces, but I would suggest checking that on the internet. Me? No, I got lazy. I just threw it in there, but I believe you understand what I'm saying. If you want an exact recipe each time, weigh. If you're okay and you can wing it, don't weigh. And here's the beer. As you can see, that's not an entire bottle of beer. And I'll mix it around until it seems a little too craggly, and then I'll throw some more beer in it. You want to add liquid bit by bit. You just don't want to dump it all in there. If you come across any videos that are saying add in a cup of whatever, they don't make bread very often. Do it a little bit at a time. And yes, it's a lot easier on a stand mixer, but I needed to show by hand for those of you who don't have a stand mixer yet. Now I'll go through this, then I'll start checking for tackiness, and it's not going to feel tacky enough to me. I really didn't want to open up another bottle of beer. So what I decided to do was just to use a tablespoon of water at a time until I got the consistency I wanted. And I believe that's now I might have a little bit more beer left. I believe at the end of this, I wound up putting 3 additional tablespoons of water on top of a full bottle of beer. I didn't look, but I believe a bottle of beer has 12 ounces. Now, it may need more in this case. For one, there are potato flakes, which, as you know, can sop up a lot of water, and the viscosity of beer is quite different than water. It's a lot thicker, so that itself could require more liquid. So as you can see, it's not quite coming together. If I were to dump this in a pan and try to cook it, it'd be a wee bit dry. So as I'm checking this out, that's when I decided I need more liquid. Let me go get more liquid. Now you're going to see me dump it in with a measuring cup. I'm doing that just so I don't spill it all over the floor, tremors and all. But I am doing 3 single tablespoons of water. There I go for my first tablespoon of water. You want to do 1 tablespoon at a time because you can always add more water. But if you put too much water in, how do you get it out? You'd have to add more flour, and that's just going to throw everything off. So here's that first thing of water. There I'm going for the second tablespoon of water. And yes, I'm wearing silly pants as usual. And you're going to see the last tablespoon of water get thrown on top of everything. I believe I stop after this. Now, if it seems a little wet, that's okay. As you knead it, that'll start working itself out. See, I'm just starting to knead it within the bowl because I'm just trying to get all the little pieces of flour and everything up. I'll be moving it onto the countertop in a second. Now, when I go to knead it on the countertop, I do things a little different. You could normally see most people throw a little flour down on the countertop. I don't. I'll either squirt the countertop with some Pam and my hands with Pam, cooking spray, or pour a little oil in my hands, a little oil on top of whatever I'm working with. I think here I do oil because I'm out of Pam. Now I'm putting a cutting board up because quite frankly, my kids work on this sometimes and you wouldn't believe what they're working on. But here's the bread, and what you're going to see me do next is put some oil down, pretty much down on the counter, down on my hands. There's the oil I was talking about. That's a little olive oil. I like the taste of olive oil. It really doesn't bother me. But if you don't want a strong taste, you might want to do something like vegetable oil or canola or something very bland, if you will. And here you're going to see me just continue to knead. Do I like hand kneading? Oh, heavens no. I like putting this in the mixer, putting it on low, locking the head so it doesn't walk off my counter, and let it go for 10 minutes. But here you're going to see me actually work the dough for 10 minutes. Honestly, after I saw it, I thought, I could have went a little bit longer because you want the actual dough to wind up nice and soft and supple feeling. And it's a good idea when you knead, fold it on itself. You're creating all these different structures that when it rises, it's going to push against itself and you're going to get a better rise than you would if you just left it be. So fold it on itself, beat it up. You'll know you're getting better because as you look at the dough, it was really crackly when we started. See how it's starting to smooth out? But like I was saying, I really should have gone a little longer than I had here. You can see by the quality of the bread. I mean, it's still a little lumpy, like I was mentioning. I should have done it for an additional 5 minutes. But you can see how the lumpiness is starting to dissipate. That's what you're looking for with all your kneading. You want a nice, smooth dough ball. Yeah, I should have done it a few more minutes past this. I actually did it by hand for about 10 minutes, but normally I do it 10 minutes in the stand mixer, so it probably gets a little more work. You're going to see me in a moment pull out the bowl and put a little oil in the bowl and roll the dough ball in the oil, so it can rise, and you don't want the dough ball to dry out while it's trying to rise. So that's the reason for the oil. You're going to let it sit in a warm place in your kitchen, and about an hour, as long as it's doubled in size, you're good to go. Now, for me, the day I did this bread, it was a little cold in my kitchen, and it actually took about an hour and a half to get that doubled size. But, just kind of eyeball it when you put it into the bowl to see where it starts from, and you'll be able to tell very easily once it gets doubled its size. I know I'm just kneading the bread right now. You'll see me make individual buns, but if you wanted to, you could very easily just shape this into a loaf, put it in a loaf pan and cook it. It could be either or. I'll mention this again, but if it's in a loaf pan, about 350 for 25 to 30 minutes. You're going to have to check. Every oven's different. Mine, I have a convection oven and I have to watch it because the tops will actually burn because the convection throws the air around. So, yeah, 25 to 30 minutes if you're going to do buns like you'll see me do here. I believe I put it in for about 15 minutes, then I'd flip them over and let them go for another 8 to 10. It looks better than it had in the beginning, but as you can see, there's still some cragginess to it that I should have worked out. Here's my bowl. I already threw a little oil at the bottom of it, which I'm trying to show you. And I'm just taking the dough ball and rolling it around in the oil so it doesn't dry out. And I'm going to leave it here. And as you can see in a second, I'm going to try to shape it at the bottom so I have an idea on where it started from. So when I check it in an hour, I'll see if it's ready to go. But in my case, it wasn't quite ready to go, so I covered it back up and let it go a little bit longer. So try to find a warm spot in your kitchen, put the bread there and just let it sit. If you don't have time to have it rise now, you could always throw it in a storage bag, throw it in your fridge, and take care of it at a later date because the fridge will slow down the rising. So here you go. I'm getting ready to have it rise. So shortly I'm going to break off of here and I will show you when everything is finished rising. Now you're going to see me work with the dough. Here is my lovely little dough ball, and yes, it's doubled in size. I had to let this one go a little bit longer. Normally it's just an hour, but my kitchen was a little cold, so it was more like an hour and a half. What I'm going to do here, and yes, it's true, I could have split it up, weigh the whole dough ball and split it up. But this is just for my house. I'm not trying to actually create this to sell. So what I'm doing here is, since this big dough ball sort of looks like a pizza to me, I am treating it like a pizza. I cut it in half, and I'm going to cut the half in half. And then when I have that little quarter, I'm going to cut it in half again, basically giving myself 8 full buns to use for this. So that's what you're going to see me here. I'm cutting the half in half, and then I'll put that 1/4 away and cover all that stuff up while I work on a couple of the buns. Okay, so that's being put away. Here I'm going to cut this quarter in half again. Now, I don't worry about knocking the air out because as I shape the buns, the air is getting knocked out, so it's no big whoop. So here's the half and half. What I normally do, now if you just shape it from here, don't try to do anything to it, will it still rise? Yeah, sure. But imagine what it's going to do is, as you see here, I'm sort of flattening it out. I'm going to roll it up on itself, and I'm going to take that cigar, if you will, and roll it up on itself. And then I'm going to try to shape this into a bun. Am I absolutely perfect? No, no, not at all. But by putting it like this, I'm forcing it, so it's not going to rise real easy. It's going to be pushing against itself to rise. And by doing that, you're going to get better lift in your bread. So that's what you're going to see me do with each one of these. And of course, I'll make some of it go by a little bit faster. Now, if you were wanting to just make a loaf of bread, do the same thing. Kind of flatten it out a little bit, roll it up on itself, shape it into a loaf, toss it in the pan. So here I'm pushing it on itself. I'm not sure if this analogy would help you, but if you think about putting a whole bunch of snakes in a bag, those snakes are going to try to want to get out, and they're going to be pushing in all different directions. They're going to be expanding and making this as the bag as large as possible trying to get out. And that's what's going to happen here. The bread is going to be pushing against itself. That yeast wants to be redistributed. That's what we're doing. So as you watch me finish this, I will be showing you the ending when we have everything ready for the second rise. Now the second rise I usually only do for 45 minutes. I try not to do it more than that because the first rise is usually enough. And as you continue to watch me, it's going to be the same thing. I'm going ahead and flatten it out, roll it in on itself, continue to roll it around itself, and then try to shape a bun out of it. What you see me picking out of some of the dough, which I should have talked about, if you don't sift your individual ingredients and they lump up a little bit, those lumps could start showing up in the dough. So you might want to sift your flour and anything else that's kind of lumpy. It'll stop that from happening. Okay, this one's going to short or end pretty quick. I'm going to finish these two buns and then put everything on a cookie sheet for its second rise. And like I was mentioning, the second rise I do for about 45 minutes. I don't get too nuts because then you'll wind up overproving it and it just doesn't turn out as well. So the first rise, double in size, usually takes about an hour. Second rise, about 45 minutes, and you're good to go. And I believe after this one, you're going to see me put them all on a cookie sheet, getting them ready for their second rise. There they are. So you see a few of them aren't perfect, but it's for the house, so I'm not worried. I'll be covering these up and, of course, letting you see it once the 45 minutes is over with. If you haven't started Now here are the finished buns. What I like to do, and I believe Miss Allie did this in Little Hill Homestead, I hope I'm remembering her channel's name properly, is takes a I wanted to show this to you. This is what the inside of the bread looks like, and you can see how soft it is. I'm really not putting much pressure on this at all. So I want to thank you for watching my video today. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.